What if everything you believed about the aftermath of the Wizarding War was just the beginning of a different story? Imagine walking through the silent, shadowed corridors of Hogwarts long after the echoes of battle have faded. Your footsteps stirring dust motes in streams of pale sunlight. The portraits whispering rumors of victories and heartbreaks that never reached the newspapers of the magical world. What if, in this quiet aftermath, two young wizards, Harry Potter, the boy who lived, and Hermione Granger, the brightest witch of her age, found themselves not only surviving the echoes of Voldemort's terror, but discovering an unexpected and profound connection that neither prophecy nor precedent could have predicted. The very air seems to hum with possibility, a tension between what is expected and what is daringly new, as if the castle itself leans in to listen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm really curious, from which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins on a misty evening in early September, the air crisp with the first hints of autumn, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and charred parchment from the fireplaces still warm from summer's lingering magic. Harry walks alone along the edge of the black lake, the water dark and still, reflecting a sky painted in muted lilacs and deep indigos, and he wonders what life might be without the constant pull of destiny. Hermione approaches, her books clutched tightly to her chest, as if holding on to more than knowledge, perhaps memories, perhaps courage, or the unspoken hope of a world reshaped by the choices they now face. She pauses beside him, careful not to disturb the fragile quiet, and together they watch the lake mirror the heavens, the night thickening like ink over parchment. Canonically, Hogwarts has always served as a crucible for forging deep friendships. Yet here, in the stillness after the chaos, the bonds feel newly malleable, as if time itself has granted them a canvas to paint not merely survival, but life. Scholars still debate how much of Harry's resilience came from innate bravery versus the unwavering loyalty of his friends. Yet this very debate seems trivial now, overshadowed by the subtle gravity drawing him toward Hermione. The first tentative conversations feel like the flutter of a phoenix's wing, soft, uncertain, yet impossible to ignore. They speak not of heroic deeds or lingering fears, but of mundane curiosities, a rare book discovered in the restricted section of the library, the eccentric habits of a newly appointed professor, the peculiar migration patterns of the magical frogs that inhabit the greenhouses. These small, seemingly inconsequential details form a tapestry of intimacy, woven stitch by stitch, a pattern neither had anticipated, but both recognize as necessary. Fringe magical lore suggests that true emotional bonds can influence the efficacy of spells, a detail often dismissed by the Ministry but noted in obscure treatises buried in the archives. As they walk along the cobblestone paths lined with whispering trees, their laughter mingles with the rustle of leaves, a gentle counterpoint to the haunting silence of a castle still healing from centuries of layered histories. By candlelight, in one of the many cozy, book-lined rooms near the library, Hermione shows Harry a series of old alchemical diagrams, their edges curled with age. Harry traces a finger along the intricate symbols, asking questions not just about their function, but their philosophy, the underlying intention behind each arcane loop. This is their first shared venture into the deliberate merging of intellect and intuition outside of structured lessons or crises. Canonical texts note Hermione's meticulous study habits, and in this intimate moment, they serve a different purpose, bridging hearts as much as minds. Here in the quiet, surrounded by parchment and flickering flames, the sense of history pressing against them fades. What matters is only the subtle gravity pulling two souls together, the shared curiosity that might in another life have been misinterpreted as mere friendship. Later, the castle grounds become their canvas for experiments both whimsical and profound. They conjure tiny lights above the forbidden forest's edge, illuminating paths in synchronized patterns, mimicking constellations in ways that make even the ghosts pause to admire. Fringe accounts from the era describe similar experiments conducted by long-forgotten wizarding couples. Yet few survived the annals of recorded history. These playful acts, scholars still debate, may have influenced minor enchantments, persisting through centuries. Harry watches Hermione laugh as a tiny flare of blue sparks escapes her wand, dissipating in a soft hiss of smoke. He realizes the enormity of these moments, not in their magical significance, but in their human resonance. Each shared glance, each deliberate misstep in a spell, feels like the subtle layering of a life being quietly rewritten, a narrative branching off into possibilities never foretold by prophecy or fate. Evenings are spent by the lake, the mirrored sky reflecting stars that seem brighter because they are witnessed together. Hermione reads aloud from a collection of old magical treatises, her voice weaving stories of long-gone wizards and witches, while Harry listens, occasionally interjecting with insights or questions that lead to laughter or shared contemplation. The intimacy is punctuated by moments of silence, where only the soft ripple of water and the distant hoot of an owl exists. This is where their bond deepens, not through dramatic duels or moments of life-threatening danger, but through patience, attentiveness, and the gentle recognition of each other's idiosyncrasies. Canonical lore reminds us that friendship in the wizarding world often precedes romantic attachment. Yet here, in this gentle unfolding, the lines blur into something far more profound, quietly subverting every expectation laid upon them by history and narrative alike. Quirky details pepper their days, a mischievous Kneazle slipping into their shared study, enchanted quills writing messages on their own, and an old broomstick inexplicably hovering in the corridor as if inspecting their progress. These whimsical occurrences are reminders that magic, like emotion, is unpredictable, often resisting tidy explanation. Fringe texts in the Department of Mysteries hint that objects attuned to genuine affection exhibit minor autonomous behavior, a phenomenon still debated among scholars who caution against conflating anecdotal observations with empirical magical lore. For Harry and Hermione, these quirks are less about proof and more about shared delight, small sparks that illuminate their growing connection in ways words alone could never achieve. By the end of the first chapter of this alternate life, they sit beneath an ancient willow, its branches swaying like dancers, choreographed by the wind. The day's adventures, the quiet exchanges, the laughter, and the lingering questions about the future coalesce into a serene awareness. The world has shifted slightly, imperceptibly, but irrevocably. The warmth between them is not a flame that consumes, but a subtle, enduring glow, a quiet rebellion against all that was expected and all that was preordained. In these moments, even the weight of fame, legacy, and lingering prophecy fades into insignificance, leaving only two people contemplating, for the first time fully, what it means to choose a shared life deliberately, courageously, and tenderly. And so begins the story of Harry Potter and Hermione Granger. not merely as heroes of a war long ended, but as architects of a life together, forging intimacy through curiosity, courage, and playful exploration. Each choice, each spell, each shared glance lays the foundation for a future yet unwritten, a life of subtle enchantments and whispered understandings, a narrative that scholars still debate and fans might only dare imagine. This is where our journey begins, and it starts not with fireworks or proclamations, but with the quiet certainty that together they are discovering a magic far older and deeper than any wand could summon. Life beyond Hogwarts presents a landscape both familiar and strangely unfamiliar, a world that hums with magic, yet is no longer contained within the castle's storied walls. Harry and Hermione step cautiously into this post-war era, where daily routines are now punctuated not by lessons or duels, but by paperwork, appointments, and the subtle pressures of a society still healing from Voldemort's shadow. Imagine walking through the bustling corridors of the Ministry of Magic, the echo of polished boots on marble floors, blending with the chatter of witches and wizards whose faces still carry traces of old anxieties, and knowing that the choices you make here ripple outward, subtly reshaping the magical world. Their early mornings are filled with reviewing enchanted documents that rearrange themselves according to urgency, a bureaucratic quirk unique to post-war magical administration. Canonically, Hermione's position in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures allows her to advocate for policies that balance fairness with magical law. An arena fraught with subtle political intrigue and endless debate. Scholars still debate how much influence young wizards like her could wield in shaping policy after such widespread upheaval. Yet the energy of innovation and idealism is palpable whenever she speaks. The first few weeks outside Hogwarts feel like a slow dance with responsibility, each step measured, deliberate, yet tinged with wonder. Harry discovers that the world beyond the castle is as unpredictable as any magical duel. Enchanted quills sometimes refuse to write. Letters vanish into thin air, and owls occasionally deliver correspondence to the wrong recipients. These minor anomalies are a reminder that magic, like life, is rarely linear. Hermione, ever meticulous, keeps notes of these incidents, cataloguing them with obsessive precision, yet even she cannot suppress a laugh when a parchment spontaneously folds itself into the shape of a small dragon before spiraling gently to the floor. This tiny, fringed display of magical whimsy signals a subtle truth. The world they inhabit is alive, responsive, and eager to challenge them. Evenings are quieter, but no less enchanting. They often walk the streets of Diagon Alley, now bustling with restoration projects, new shops, and the lingering hum of commerce mingled with enchantments designed to protect and amuse. Harry pauses outside the newly rebuilt Flourish and Blots, remembering late nights spent poring over texts with Ron, Hermione's furrowed brow etched into his memory, her wand tracing underlines as if the ink itself were alive. Canonical records confirm Hermione's extraordinary aptitude for spellwork, particularly in precise, intricate charms. And it is in these quieter walks that Harry observes her in her element, not merely as a witch of unmatched intellect, but as a person whose joy in discovery radiates effortlessly. Fringe magical lore suggests that such joy can subtly amplify ambient magic, creating minor, almost imperceptible effects in surrounding objects, a theory still debated by Ministry researchers. The air feels lighter in her presence, charged with an unspoken energy that Harry is only beginning to understand as more than friendship. Their new home, modest by Malfoy-era standards, yet warm and filled with books, plants, and enchanted trinkets, becomes a haven for exploration. Harry learns the intricacies of running a household in a magically attuned space, self-cleaning fireplaces that occasionally misfire, cupboards that insist on sorting ingredients alphabetically, and enchanted windows that display different weather scenes depending on one's mood. Hermione delights in organizing everything, often accompanied by Harry's bemused commentary as he attempts to understand the logic of magical domesticity. Canonically, young wizards after the war were encouraged to experiment with enchantments in personal spaces, both for leisure and as part of rebuilding magical society. They invent small charms together, sometimes resulting in unexpected explosions of glittering sparks or a temporarily levitating teapot, causing fits of laughter and bonding that is as profound as it is light-hearted. Friendship, long the foundation of their connection, begins to transform subtly into romantic intimacy. Harry notices the way Hermione's eyes light up when she explains the finer points of magical lore, or how her hand brushes against his when they reach for the same scroll. These small moments are unremarkable to anyone else, but monumental in their unfolding story, laying the groundwork for trust and desire intertwined with intellectual admiration. Fringe anecdotal evidence suggests that mutual intellectual engagement in high-stress post-war environments can accelerate emotional bonding, a hypothesis still debated by scholars who examine the intersection of magic and human psychology. Their connection deepens without fanfare, measured in shared smiles, quiet conversations over tea, and the unspoken understanding that comes from having survived history's most terrifying magical war together. Social expectations add layers of complexity. Friends and colleagues, while supportive, cannot help but comment on the unusual nature of their pairing, especially given Harry's fame and Hermione's reputation for rigor. Gossip circulates in subtle forms. A comment from a passing witch in the atrium, a smirk from an office clerk, or a half-joking observation by Ron, who teases Harry about the occasional firework misfiring in their home. Canonically, social pressures on prominent young wizards after Voldemort's defeat were immense, with the public keenly observing any deviation from expected norms. Harry and Hermione navigate these pressures with quiet determination, learning to prioritize their private bond over public opinion, while still participating in the reconstruction of a society wary of disruption, yet eager for hope. A quirky magical mishap punctuates one afternoon. A sentient broomstick, misidentified by the Ministry as a rogue artifact, follows them home, insisting on perching atop the roof as if claiming dominion. Attempts to negotiate with the broom result in temporary levitation of household items, minor explosions of magical sparks, and a long debate over broom etiquette. This is emblematic of their life together, structured yet unpredictable, filled with lessons that are both practical and symbolic. Scholars still debate whether these post-war anomalies were residual effects of dark magic, the unpredictable side effects of concentrated post-conflict spellwork, or merely anecdotal exaggerations passed down in ministry reports. For Harry and Hermione, the incident becomes a source of private amusement, a shared story to remember, a thread of joy weaving through the fabric of their new life. The evenings often culminate in quiet reflection, seated together by the fire. Hermione reads aloud from obscure magical treatises, while Harry sketches minor enchantments on parchment, sometimes absent-mindedly, sometimes deliberately. Their discussion flows seamlessly from legal theory to philosophical musings, then to the small eccentricities of magical creatures recently released into rehabilitated habitats. Canonical texts confirm Hermione's dedication to magical creature advocacy, yet in this context it becomes a shared passion, a bonding ritual that transcends professional obligations. Fringe details, like a house elf insisting on rearranging their books according to magical resonance rather than alphabetical order, add subtle humor and unpredictability to the otherwise calm atmosphere. They talk, laugh, and sometimes just sit, the room alive with enchantments and the quiet pulse of two lives intertwining in ways neither had anticipated, but both cherish deeply. By the end of these first weeks, Harry and Hermione have carved out a life that is orderly yet playful, serious yet spontaneous, structured yet flexible, a life reflective of the broader magical world trying to find balance after the devastation of war. Each spell cast, each conversation held, each magical misadventure undertaken is a brick in the foundation of a shared existence that promises more than survival. It promises growth, joy, and the quiet thrill of partnership forged through intellect, courage, and love. Scholars still debate how significant the influence of individual post-war wizards was in shaping the trajectory of magical society. Yet for Harry and Hermione, the question is secondary to the lived reality of constructing a life together. Step by meticulous step, charm by gentle charm, laughter by shared exclamation, as the post-war world slowly hums to life around them. The Ministry of Magic looms as a sprawling, labyrinthine institution of both promise and peril, its corridors echoing with the collective footsteps of witches and wizards seeking to rebuild a world left fractured by dark forces. Harry and Hermione step into this environment with cautious optimism, aware that their roles are no longer defined solely by heroism in battle, but by the subtler arts of influence, diplomacy, and navigating the intricate machinery of magical governance. Imagine the hushed hum of enchanted lamps lining the atrium, the soft rustle of papers as magical quills dart across parchment, and the gentle whoosh of moving staircases rearranging themselves like serpents in the dim light. The ministry is alive and it watches, curious and inscrutable. So begins their next challenge, balancing duty with the personal intimacy they are carefully nurturing. Their first days are filled with introductions, the awkwardness of fame colliding with bureaucratic formalities, and an immediate immersion in processes both tedious and complex. Canonically, Harry joins the Aura Office, and Hermione advances in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, roles that place them at the confluence of policy, enforcement, and moral responsibility, a trifecta demanding judgment, patience, and diplomacy. Their initial assignments quickly illustrate that politics, even in the magical world, is not governed solely by merit, but by perception, allegiance, and subtle maneuvering. A minor dispute over the rehabilitation of a mischievous Niffler population escalates into a heated debate among department heads, and Harry, accustomed to straightforward action, must learn the art of negotiation, tact, and occasionally silent restraint. Fringe accounts suggest that post-war magical creatures often act unpredictably in urban environments, a phenomenon still debated by scholars who argue whether these behaviors are inherent or residual from dark magic exposure. Hermione, ever precise and analytical, drafts policy suggestions that satisfy legal criteria while maintaining ethical standards. Her brilliance recognized but also challenged by senior officials accustomed to bureaucratic inertia. Their interactions with colleagues oscillate between laughter and tension, Minor magical mishaps, such as self-writing quills flooding reports across desks, provide comic relief while subtly reinforcing the need for flexibility and ingenuity. As the weeks unfold, their partnership becomes a visible force within the ministry, not merely a rumor whispered in corridors, but a tangible example of collaboration that combines Harry's courage and decisiveness with Hermione's meticulous reasoning and insight. Together they champion small reforms, improving conditions for house elves, advocating for rehabilitative education programs for wayward young witches and wizards, and streamlining procedural charms that expedite the processing of magical permits. Canonical records confirm Hermione's long-standing commitment to magical justice, and here, in the post-war reconstruction, she channels that commitment into practical change. Yet every achievement carries subtle friction. Colleagues sometimes react with envy, skepticism, or playful challenges, forcing Harry and Hermione to negotiate, compromise, and occasionally bend the rigid framework of ministry protocol with ingenuity. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some magical bureaucracies retain enchantments that subtly favor traditionally influential families, a remnant of centuries of hierarchy. Still debated by modern scholars, but Harry and Hermione's growing rapport begins to shift these subtle biases, if only incrementally. Mischief, a near-constant companion in their lives, weaves through their professional endeavors. An enchanted filing cabinet develops a mind of its own, repeatedly reorganizing important documents based on the mood of those nearby, resulting in sudden bursts of laughter and moments of frustration. They experiment with small spells to stabilize it. Yet each attempt only produces creative chaos, scrolls hovering mid-air, enchanted ink spelling out cryptic messages, and minor firework-like sparks erupting in otherwise solemn chambers. These whimsical interruptions punctuate the otherwise rigid rhythms of ministry life, reminding them that magic, and indeed love, is rarely orderly or predictable. Canonically, the Aura Office documents unusual magical phenomena extensively, though many of these incidents are treated with gentle amusement rather than strict discipline. Fringe reports hint that such magical quirks may be influenced by strong emotional bonds in the vicinity, a notion still debated, but Harry and Hermione perceive them as playful nudges from the world itself, acknowledging their partnership with humor and curiosity. Their growing influence is not limited to administrative success. They are called upon to mediate disputes, counsel anxious new recruits, and intervene when magical miscommunications threaten minor disasters. One memorable afternoon involves a pair of young wizards who accidentally unleashed a small storm of enchanted feathers in a crowded atrium, leading to sneezes, levitating robes, and general hilarity. Harry steps forward, using calm authority, while Hermione demonstrates the charm to reverse the mess, transforming the chaotic scene into an impromptu teaching moment. Canonical Hogwarts texts often describe such practical demonstrations as critical for training future magical practitioners, and in the ministry context, they serve the dual purpose of preserving decorum and strengthening morale. Fringe observers note that laughter and shared problem-solving in magical environments can enhance spell efficacy, a notion still debated, yet observable in Harry and Hermione's seamless coordination. The personal dimension of their relationship continues to grow amidst these professional challenges. Subtle glances exchanged during tense meetings, whispered discussions over enchanted cups of tea, and the gentle, almost imperceptible brush of hands across scrolls serve as reminders that their connection remains central, grounding them amidst the administrative and magical whirlwind. These small acts, while appearing mundane to outsiders, are charged with significance in their lives, binding them more tightly with each day. Canonically, intimate bonds among magical colleagues are often understated. Yet here, they are both literal and symbolic, influencing magical outcomes, enhancing cooperation, and fostering an atmosphere of trust and playfulness. Fringe studies suggest that strong emotional connections can create minor ambient magical effects, a theory still debated but demonstrated in the almost imperceptible spark of energy that seems to follow. The pair, wherever they go, evening walks through the ministry's courtyards offer rare moments of reflection and intimacy. The fading sun casts long shadows, the leaves rustle underfoot, and faint magical lights illuminate hidden alcoves. Here, Harry and Hermione discuss ambitions, fears, and small absurdities of post-war life, their laughter blending with the soft hum of ambient magic. They speculate on possible adventures, personal projects, and long-term plans, their dialogue a mixture of strategic foresight, gentle teasing, and quiet confessions. Canonical documentation confirms that many auras and ministry officials maintain journals to record observations and personal reflections. Here, Harry and Hermione's conversations serve as both a record of progress and a shared history written in real time, a narrative embroidered with joy, curiosity, and mutual respect. Fringe anecdotes suggest that spontaneous magical phenomena often accompany deep emotional resonance in professional settings, a subtle magic woven from attention, care, and affection, still debated among scholars for its precise mechanisms. By the end of these initial ministry months, Harry and Hermione have established themselves not only as competent professionals, but as an inseparable duo whose partnership embodies balance, humor, courage, and intellect. Every successful negotiation, every rescued creature, every playful mishap reinforces the depth of their connection and demonstrates how love and life intertwine with responsibility, ethics, and whimsy. They have transformed the ministry corridors into a space where magic is not only enforced or regulated, but experienced, shared, and celebrated. Scholars still debate how the influence of individual post-war wizards shaped the evolving magical bureaucracy, yet Harry and Hermione's story is palpable in every enchanted quill, every corrected scroll, and every laugh that echoes through the atriums, hinting at a future both meticulously structured and unpredictably joyful. Adventures in the wider wizarding world offer Harry and Hermione a rare chance to step beyond the solemn walls of the ministry and Hogwarts alike, venturing into hidden corners of magic that most witches and wizards only read about in dusty tomes or whispered legends. Imagine them stepping into the mist-shrouded alleys of Hogsmeade at dawn, the cobblestones slick from early morning dew, the scent of fresh-baked treacle tarts wafting from the 3 broomsticks, the air humming faintly with lingering charms from centuries of enchantments. Here, in this liminal space between history and discovery, their partnership shifts naturally into exploration. Hands brushing over the bindings of forgotten books, eyes lighting up at rare spell components, laughter echoing where only the wind and the call of a distant magical creature should exist. So as you settle into tonight's narrative, let the room darken, a fan hum softly in the background, and feel the quiet anticipation of entering uncharted magical territories alongside them. Their first excursion takes them to the ruins of a long-abandoned wizarding village in the Scottish Highlands, cloaked in mist and shadowed by ancient enchanted forests. Canonical references confirm that several wizarding settlements were abandoned during periods of magical suppression, leaving behind relics and artifacts whose powers remain only partially understood. Here, the duo uncovers a collapsed library, its walls lined with half-charred scrolls and enchanted tomes still glowing faintly with protective wards. Fringe accounts from magical archaeologists suggest that some abandoned settlements retain residual enchantments that subtly interact with the emotions and intentions of visitors, a phenomenon still debated. But Harry and Hermione sense the subtle pull of history in the air, the ghosts of those who lived and studied here, whispering guidance to those attuned to their presence. They carefully navigate collapsed hallways, Hermione noting intricate magical traps designed to protect knowledge from being stolen, Harry marveling at the ingenuity of spells designed to anticipate human curiosity. Their shared curiosity often leads to playful competition. Hermione deciphers obscure runes etched into the walls, tracing the faint glow with her wand, while Harry attempts to reconstruct the original protective spells from memory. Occasionally, a misfired charm sends a book or scroll tumbling into mid-air, levitating briefly before settling with a gentle thud, eliciting laughter and groans in equal measure. These minor mishaps, while frustrating at first, become teaching moments that test both patience and creativity. Canonical histories suggest that wizarding libraries often incorporated fail-safes against intrusion or neglect. The fact that some wards remain functional centuries later is a testament to their design. Fringe magical treatises hint that the physical engagement with such protective spells may leave subtle impressions on the caster, enhancing reflexes and magical intuition, a hypothesis still debated among contemporary scholars. Beyond ruins, their journey takes them to hidden caverns beneath the Scottish lochs, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi and the faint shimmer of protective water charms. Harry and Hermione move carefully, their wands casting soft golden glows that dance across crystalline walls, revealing hieroglyphs and arcane symbols that hint at long-forgotten rituals. Canonical records note that water-based magical sites often contained protective enchantments that interacted with emotional states, subtly rewarding calm and cooperative exploration. Fringe legends speak of echoes of past guardians, minor spirits that observe and occasionally guide intruders, a phenomenon skeptics dismiss, but enthusiasts fervently debate. In these caverns, the couple uncovers a rare artifact, a small, crystal orb that hums with ambient magic, responding to proximity and intention rather than words. Hermione traces runes along its surface while Harry experiments with minor charms, both fascinated by its responsiveness and the way it mirrors the subtle synchronization of their own magical energies. On more whimsical days, their adventures are punctuated by the pursuit of mischievous, magical creatures. A cluster of Cornish pixies has taken residence in an abandoned tower near Diagon Alley, causing minor havoc with levitating objects and animated paintings. Harry and Hermione collaborate to corral them, utilizing a mix of spells, hand signals, and patient coaxing. Canonical sources describe Cornish pixies as notoriously resistant to authority, requiring both cleverness and persistence to manage successfully. Fringe anecdotal evidence suggests that pixies respond not only to magic, but to the emotional state of those handling them, thriving on frustration or delight, a notion still debated but evident in their unpredictable antics. The couple's shared laughter and quick adaptability highlight not only their compatibility, but also the depth of understanding and trust that has grown between them, a bond solidified through challenges both mundane and extraordinary. Their explorations also bring moments of quiet reflection. Sitting atop cliffs overlooking misted valleys, the wind tugging at their robes, Hermione sketches arcane symbols in the air, while Harry observes the interplay of light and shadow on the distant loch. Canonically, many wizarding traditions emphasize observation as integral to spellcraft, noting that perceptive attention can amplify enchantments and attunement to magical forces. Fringe magical folklore holds that emotional resonance during observation. Moments of awe, curiosity, or shared wonder enhances magical insight, a hypothesis still debated but subtly apparent in the harmony of their collaboration. These moments are not merely about magic, but about presence, observation, and the quiet intimacy of two lives unfolding in sync. Occasionally, adventures take them across international borders of the magical world. In the hidden bazaars of Istanbul's magical quarter, they discover enchanted carpets that hover imperceptibly above the cobblestones, selling ingredients and charms unknown to the British wizarding community. Hermione meticulously catalogues each unique component, while Harry negotiates with vendors over rare artifacts, their dynamic a dance of intellect and diplomacy. Canonical wizarding law permits trade of magical objects across borders with strict documentation. These excursions are therefore both legal and deeply enriching. Fringe accounts speak of markets where items carry latent magical histories, subtly influenced by the emotions of past owners, a notion still debated but undeniably fascinating to explorers with keen perception. These trips, blending scholarship with adventure, cement their understanding that the magical world is vast, complex, and brimming with wonders far beyond the familiar halls of Hogwarts or ministry offices. Evenings after such adventures are spent in quiet debrief, the artifacts carefully stored, notes meticulously cross-referenced, and laughter shared over minor mishaps. Books accidentally animated, enchanted quills scribbling unsolicited commentary, or a wayward pixie escaping capture only to return hours later with a mischievous grin. Canonical studies in magical creature behavior suggest that playful intelligence is common among magical species, often serving as a training ground for young wizards. Here, it becomes a shared playground for Harry and Hermione's growing bond. Fringe details, such as enchanted tea leaves forming subtle predictive patterns of their moods, add whimsy and insight into their daily lives, a gentle reminder that magic reflects emotion as much as intention. Scholars still debate the precise mechanisms behind these interactive phenomena, but for the couple, they are part of the joy, unpredictability, and wonder of life together. By the end of these shared adventures, Harry and Hermione are not only seasoned explorers, but partners whose trust, intuition, and understanding of one another have deepened immeasurably. The artifacts they uncover, the creatures they encounter, and the unexpected challenges they navigate are secondary to the greater journey, a partnership tested, enriched, and strengthened in the subtle interplay of intellect, courage, and humor. Each magical encounter, whether profound or playful, leaves an imprint not just on the world, but on their connection, establishing a rhythm of discovery and wonder that will define the story of their life together. Scholars still debate whether such formative post-war experiences could have lasting influence on wizarding society, but for Harry and Hermione, these adventures are tangible, lived, and deeply transformative, a narrative unfolding one careful step, one playful spell, and one shared laugh at a time. The trials of family and friendship come as both expected and surprising tests for Harry and Hermione. weaving complexity into the tapestry of their post-war lives. Imagine the quiet morning light spilling over the gardens of their modest home, the air carrying the scent of freshly brewed tea and faint traces of charred parchment from spell practice the night before. As letters begin to arrive with congratulations, questions, and subtle judgment alike. Friends, long companions in war and study, offer perspectives shaped by history, rivalry, and lingering allegiances, reminding Harry and Hermione that their choices reverberate far beyond their immediate circle. Canonically, families such as the Weasleys and the Grangers hold strong opinions on loyalty, tradition, and social propriety, and these values now intersect with the couple's desires, forcing negotiation between private happiness and collective expectation. Fringe details emerge in the form of playful magical interferences, enchanted letters rearranging words, faintly giggling quills emphasizing unexpected phrases, minor reminders that magic itself participates in these social currents, a phenomenon still debated among ministry scholars and magical sociologists. Harry receives subtle probes from Ron and Ginny, whose teasing masks concern over the implications of his new partnership. Their questions range from the practical, how will career choices align with domestic life, to the philosophical, how might personal happiness influence wider magical society? Hermione, meanwhile, navigates letters and visits from her family, whose pride is tempered by cautious inquiry into the complexities of blending lives in a world still healing from upheaval. Canonically, Hermione's parents, both Muggles, are shown to be deeply supportive yet cautious observers of her magical life, a dynamic that informs their reactions now. Fringe anecdotes suggest that Muggle-born families occasionally experience subtle, magical empathy effects when their children engage in romantic partnerships with other wizards, a phenomenon still debated but evidenced in observable emotional resonance that sometimes affects magical efficiency. Tensions occasionally flare as old rivalries and misunderstandings surface. Draco Malfoy, now attempting a quieter life, sends a formal invitation to reconcile old tensions. Harry and Hermione debate whether accepting represents diplomacy, pragmatism, or a risk. Canonical references indicate that former antagonists often navigate post-war alliances carefully, with public appearances and private negotiations carrying significant social weight. Fringe reports note that enchanted artifacts or heirlooms carried into social interactions can subtly influence the emotional tone of encounters, a mechanism still debated among scholars, but visible in Draco's cautious, almost imperceptible gestures. In these interactions, Harry and Hermione must navigate pride, past enmity, and the unspoken need for closure. Testing the trust and patience they've cultivated, moments of levity and intimacy punctuate the seriousness of these challenges. In one memorable dinner with extended friends and family, an enchanted centerpiece misfires, causing a fountain of sparkling potion to shoot into the air, coloring the walls with soft luminescence and eliciting laughter from even the most stoic attendees. Canonical magical etiquette emphasizes control and respect, yet minor mishaps are treated with indulgent amusement, particularly in domestic or celebratory contexts. Fringe lore suggests that such magical disruptions often serve as emotional equalizers, diffusing tension while highlighting underlying bonds, a phenomenon still debated but observable in the shift from stiff conversation to laughter and shared amusement. These incidents remind Harry and Hermione that connection is nurtured as much through joy and play as through formal discourse or deliberate reconciliation. As they engage with friends and family, Harry and Hermione uncover long-buried secrets, some trivial, some consequential. Letters reveal past hesitations, miscommunications, and overlooked moments of courage or fear. Canonically, the post-war wizarding world is rife with untold stories, and here the couple must process both revelation and reflection. Fringe magical phenomena, such as letters subtly shifting phrasing to emphasize emotional truth, provide an added layer of insight, though scholars still debate whether these effects are intentional or residual magic responding to the recipient's emotional attunement. In navigating these revelations, Harry and Hermione exercise patience, empathy, and strategic honesty, deepening their understanding not only of their community, but of each other. The process of forgiveness and loyalty unfolds gradually. Hermione mediates subtle misunderstandings with gentle logic and unyielding fairness, while Harry addresses emotional grievances with candidness and humility. Canonical texts note that war-tested relationships often demand such dual approaches, combining reason with heartfelt expression. Fringe anecdotal evidence suggests that magical aura synchronization, subtle, invisible fluctuations of emotional energy around individuals, can influence the receptivity of conversations, facilitating understanding or causing inadvertent tension, a mechanism still debated among contemporary scholars. Through repeated interactions, trust rebuilds where it had been frayed, old suspicions are tempered, and the couple witnesses the resilience of bonds that survive not only trials, but the passage of time and circumstance. Quirky incidents continue to punctuate their navigation of relationships. A wayward enchanted teapot insists on interrupting conversations by pouring tea of its own volition, sometimes onto unsuspecting laps, sometimes forming delicate swirling patterns that delight observers. These whimsical interventions, canonically consistent with magical household artifacts' semi-autonomous tendencies, serve to lighten otherwise heavy gatherings, offering moments of levity and shared amusement that ease tensions between individuals and families. Fringe observations suggest that objects attuned to joy or discord may exaggerate emotional undercurrents, a phenomenon still debated. Yet Harry and Hermione quickly learn to incorporate these playful anomalies into the rhythm of social life. Ultimately, these trials of family and friendship shape their growth as a couple. They learn negotiation and empathy, balancing personal desire with communal expectation, and discover that humor, patience, and shared purpose are as essential to lasting love as bravery or intellect. Canonically, intimate relationships among post-war wizards were influenced heavily by societal pressures, professional responsibilities, and lingering war trauma. Harry and Hermione navigate these forces with grace, patience, and occasional irreverence. Fringe magical details, from mischievous house spirits subtly guiding interactions to enchanted letters revealing unspoken truths, enrich the narrative, providing both challenge and delight. Scholars still debate how such post-war dynamics impacted the evolution of magical society. Yet for the couple, these experiences cultivate resilience, deepen trust, and reinforce the subtle magic of connection that will guide their shared journey for years to come. Magical mishaps and lessons become a rhythm in Harry and Hermione's life, as if the universe itself conspires to remind them that even mastery of magic is a process of trial, error, and occasional laughter. Imagine a quiet afternoon in their study. Sunlight filtering through enchanted windows that shift color according to the day's mood. The soft hum of protective wards, blending with the occasional creak of floorboards, settling under centuries of Hogwarts influence. Harry attempts a charm, to levitate a stack of heavy tomes, while Hermione is experimenting with a potion designed to highlight hidden enchantments on parchment. The result is predictably chaotic. Books swirl in spirals above their heads, pages fluttering like wings, and a thin mist of purple smoke curls along the ceiling, casting shadows that dance like spectral creatures. Canonically, such misfires are common even among accomplished wizards. Even Hermione herself acknowledges that perfection in spellwork is rare outside the controlled environment of Hogwarts classrooms. Fringe magical commentary suggests that chaos in spellcasting often accelerates intuitive learning, a phenomenon still debated but observed in wizards who consistently engage in experimental magic. These mishaps, while frustrating at first, soon transform into collaborative lessons. Hermione patiently guides Harry through the correct wand movements, emphasizing subtle nuances in intention and focus. Harry, with his instinctive approach, offers innovative solutions, testing small variations that sometimes succeed in unexpected ways. Together, they navigate the delicate interplay of precision, creativity, and emotional presence, discovering that effective magic requires not only knowledge, but empathy and patience. Canonical texts highlight that dual-caster synergy, where two wizards work in tandem, can amplify the efficacy of spells, a principle demonstrated subtly in their daily practice. Fringe reports note that emotional synchronization between practitioners can enhance the resonance of magical effects, a theory still debated but evident in the almost seamless way Harry and Hermione anticipate each other's movements and corrections. Comedic moments punctuate their lessons. A potion meant to reveal hidden runes inadvertently animates the ink, causing letters to chase each other around the room. Enchanted quills scribble playful messages, sometimes teasing Hermione with reminders of past mispronunciations, or Harry with doodles of lightning bolts sporting tiny spectacles. Canonical accounts of magical experimentation often record similar whimsical outcomes, emphasizing the unpredictability of magic outside controlled academic settings. Fringe observations suggest that laughter and shared amusement may actually stabilize unstable enchantments, creating a subtle positive feedback loop between emotional state and magical efficiency, a notion still debated but clearly evident in the sparkling results of their joint practice sessions. Beyond their study, magical mishaps extend to the everyday, turning domestic routines into minor adventures. A self-cleaning cauldron refuses to cooperate, spilling ingredients in rhythmic patterns that force quick reflexes and improvisation. A charm meant to organize their library instead levitates books alphabetically by author mood rather than name, producing both frustration and delight. Canonical records mention enchanted household objects exhibiting semi-autonomous behavior, particularly in spaces of high emotional energy. Fringe anecdotes suggest that the more joy, focus, or connection present, the more responsive and whimsical these objects become, a principle Harry and Hermione quickly learn to harness. In these shared experiences, humor, ingenuity, and patience intertwine, reinforcing their bond, while demonstrating that magic is not only a tool, but a reflection of their relationship. Lessons emerge from the chaos in subtle ways. Each mishap offers insight into magical theory, problem-solving, and the nuances of collaboration. Harry notes how Hermione's methodical approach balances his instinctive flair, while Hermione appreciates how Harry's improvisation sparks creative solutions she might not have considered. Canonically, such complementary skill sets have historically enabled wizarding duos to accomplish feats far beyond individual capability, from dueling strategies to spellcraft innovations. Fringe magical studies suggest that emotional attunement between casters may enhance spell precision and reduce unintended side effects. A Shishi hypothesis still debated but observable in the efficiency of their combined charm work. These realizations deepen not only their magical skill, but also their understanding of one another, highlighting trust, patience, and mutual respect as core ingredients in both magic and partnership. Evenings bring reflection and application. Harry and Hermione often test small spells outdoors, using natural elements to gauge outcomes, breezes to guide floating lanterns, reflective surfaces to observe light refracting through charms, and enchanted flora as indicators of subtle magical shifts. Canonical wizarding education emphasizes hands-on experimentation to reinforce theoretical learning. And here, the principle applies to life itself. Every trial, misfire, and success reinforces patterns of cooperation, observation, and creative problem-solving. Fringe magical reports note that interacting with environmental magic in tandem can heighten awareness of ambient energy, providing feedback that informs future spellcasting, a mechanism still debated but perceptible to practitioners, attuned to both each other and their surroundings. Humor continues to be a thread woven through lessons, a misfired charm that temporarily gives them both small, brightly colored feathers, sprouting from hair and robes, becomes a running joke for days. Enchanted quills write playful commentary on their experiments, occasionally forming brief word puzzles for them to solve before correcting themselves. These interruptions, while minor, cultivate resilience, adaptability, and delight, reinforcing the joy inherent in exploration. Canonical magical practice often incorporates humor as a tool for engagement and focus. The same principle applies to their partnership, where shared amusement amplifies both learning and emotional closeness. Fringe accounts speculate that laughter and levity may stabilize volatile enchantments, a theory still debated, but Harry and Hermione embrace it intuitively, allowing misadventures to become integral lessons in both magic and life. By the end of these weeks, filled with whimsical disaster and insightful breakthroughs, Harry and Hermione emerge not only as increasingly skilled practitioners, but as partners capable of navigating uncertainty together. Each spell that falters, each enchanted artifact that behaves unpredictably, and each minor accident becomes a stepping stone toward greater understanding, not just of magic, but of the subtle dynamics of trust, collaboration, and shared discovery. Canonically, the post-war wizarding world thrived on innovation and adaptability, traits embodied in their daily routines. Fringe magical phenomena, from playful household artifacts to responsive environmental charms, continue to shape their experience, providing both challenge and delight. Scholars still debate the long-term influence of such collaborative, emotionally attuned experimentation on magical theory. Yet for Harry and Hermione, these mishaps are less about scholarly discourse than about learning, laughing, and growing together in a world that is at once familiar and endlessly wondrous. Moments of reflection and growth become the quieter, yet equally profound rhythm of Harry and Hermione's lives, a counterbalance to the bustle of ministry work, adventures, and magical mishaps. Imagine a late evening, the sky painted in the muted hues of twilight, a gentle breeze carrying the distant scent of blooming magical herbs from the gardens. the air filled with soft nocturnal hums of enchanted creatures settling in for the night. In these hours, they walk along familiar paths that have become their private sanctuary, wands tucked away, voices lowered to whispers, footsteps soft on the cobblestones. Canonically, reflective practice is a cornerstone of magical education, encouraging mindfulness and attunement to both magic and self. And here it serves as a bridge to emotional insight, intimacy, and understanding. Fringe magical observations suggest that periods of quiet contemplation can subtly enhance magical resonance, a phenomenon still debated among scholars. But Harry and Hermione feel it intuitively, a gentle pull that heightens awareness of both their surroundings and each other. They begin these reflective sessions by discussing choices and the myriad paths their lives might have taken. What if we had never returned to Hogwarts after the war? Hermione muses, tracing faint patterns in the mist with her wand, patterns that shimmer and slowly fade, like fleeting memories. Harry considers, imagining a life spent in quieter, less heroic circumstances, yet always feeling the subtle pull of responsibility and courage. Canonical sources suggest that the post-war generation of wizards grappled with similar questions. What is owed to the past? And how does one reconcile personal desire with societal duty? Fringe details, such as a nearby enchanted pond mirroring the clouds above while subtly shifting in response to emotional energy, provide a magical reflection of their internal landscapes. A gentle reminder that choices are both illuminated and obscured by perception and feeling. Conversations meander into the nature of destiny and the weight of expectation. Harry recalls the prophecy, the countless lives lost, and the expectations placed upon him as the boy who lived, while Hermione reflects on the years spent meticulously studying spells, regulations, and magical theory, often at the cost of her own personal whims. Canonically, their experiences demonstrate the tension between individual agency and collective necessity, a tension magnified in moments of quiet contemplation. Fringe anecdotes tell of magical mirrors or artifacts that subtly shift their reflections to reveal glimpses of alternate choices, an effect still debated by scholars, but undeniably affecting those who perceive it. Together, Harry and Hermione explore the balance between predestined responsibility and the freedom to define their path, finding solace in mutual understanding and the unspoken trust that their decisions are shared, deliberate, and respected. They also reflect on the subtle lessons embedded in everyday magic and mundane life. A misbehaving fireplace that flickers with unexplained images prompts Hermione to speculate on residual memories encoded in magical objects, while Harry observes how minor enchantments respond differently to emotional presence. Canonical texts in magical theory suggest that repeated interactions with enchanted objects can leave traces of the caster's personality or emotional state, influencing future results. Fringe studies hint that these residual imprints can even guide ethical or moral insight, a principle still debated but tangibly felt in these interactions. Harry and Hermione use these subtle signs as a meditation on influence, intention, and the power of careful, thoughtful action. Quiet walks beneath the starlit sky often lead to soft confessions, whispers of fear, hope, and lingering curiosity. Hermione admits to wondering if she has been too cautious, if intellect sometimes overshadows instinct, while Harry reflects on moments of impulse, courage, and the consequences of action. Canonical histories of young wizards suggest that post-war self-reflection is critical in forming moral and emotional maturity, a notion embodied in their exchanges. Fringe magical commentary notes that environments suffused with reflective energy, Twilight gardens, tranquil libraries, secluded groves can amplify clarity and empathy, a subtle, debated effect, but one that they experience tangibly. Through these dialogues, trust deepens, bonds solidify, and both begin to appreciate the nuanced layers of each other's character, realizing that growth is a shared journey rather than a solitary endeavor. Humor punctuates even these reflective moments. A wayward, enchanted owl occasionally swoops close, carrying letters that have mysteriously shifted between their names, prompting laughter and playful exasperation. Canonical records of magical post-war wildlife interactions note that some creatures exhibit subtle responsiveness to human emotion, particularly in situations of intimacy or tension. Fringe reports suggest these behaviors may subtly influence emotional attunement, a phenomenon still debated but often observed by those attuned to magical subtleties. Harry and Hermione interpret these interruptions not as distractions, but as gentle reminders to approach life with both gravity and lightness, merging reflection with play, wisdom with wonder. Their reflections often drift to the future, children, legacies, and the shaping of a magical world that honors both tradition and innovation. They discuss the values they wish to impart, the mistakes to avoid, and the stories they hope to carry forward. Canonically, the post-war generation played a critical role in redefining wizarding education and societal norms, a process echoed in their conversations about guiding future generations. Fringe magical observations suggest that deliberate planning infused with emotional resonance can leave subtle, lasting imprints on the magical environment, a principle still debated but felt in the cautious design of spells and charms they practiced together. These plans are less about rigid structure and more about envisioning a life that balances responsibility, joy, and the unpredictable nature of magic. Even the mundane tasks, tidying up enchanted spaces, preparing for social visits, or cataloging minor artifacts, become exercises in mindfulness and mutual attunement. Each shared glance, gentle correction, or collaborative effort reinforces their understanding of each other's rhythms, priorities, and quirks. Canonical guidance emphasizes the importance of consistency, patience, and empathy in magical collaboration, and Harry and Hermione embody this principle seamlessly. Fringe anecdotes note that even simple joint tasks can amplify magical efficacy, a subtle, debated effect that seems evident in the harmonious flow of their home and experimental spaces. These moments, though quiet, are integral to their growth, embedding lessons in patience, adaptability, and the gentle art of living and loving together. By the end of these reflective periods, Harry and Hermione have cultivated not only a deeper understanding of themselves and each other, but a profound awareness of the interplay between choice, consequence, and connection. Every walk, whispered conversation, and playful interruption becomes part of an evolving narrative, teaching that growth is not a linear path, but a mosaic of insight, laughter, and shared contemplation. Scholars still debate the subtle mechanisms by which emotional resonance influences magical output, yet the couple experiences it tangibly, a quiet affirmation that reflection, like magic, is a force both powerful and unpredictable. In these moments, they are not merely partners navigating life. They are co-authors of an unfolding story, writing each chapter with care, empathy, and an ever-deepening sense of wonder. A future written together occupies the quiet spaces of Harry and Hermione's imagination, a landscape where hope, ambition, and love intertwine seamlessly, painting a life both ordinary and enchanted. Imagine sitting with them in a small study overlooking the gently undulating hills outside Hogwarts. The air thick with the scent of parchment, ink, and faintly charmed herbs. Soft, golden light pooling across the room as their wands illuminate margins with ephemeral glyphs. Here they dream aloud, whispering of children yet to be born, legacies yet to be shaped, and adventures that may unfold beyond even the boundaries of known magic. Canonically, the post-war wizarding world was fertile ground for innovation, allowing families like the Grangers and Potters to craft lives that balance tradition with exploration. And Harry and Hermione are no exception. Fringe law suggests that intentional envisioning, paired with emotional resonance, can subtly shape magical outcomes in the environment. A principle still debated, but felt in the gentle glow of artifacts responding to their musings. They imagined children with inquisitive minds, a curiosity that mirrors Hermione's meticulousness and Harry's instinctive courage. Playful yet contemplative, mischievous yet wise. Discussions of names, personalities, and magical aptitudes blend seamlessly with speculation on the worlds these children might inherit. Canonical references note that magical upbringing often combines heritage, mentorship, and personal experience, a dynamic Harry and Hermione intend to nurture intentionally. Fringe magical anecdotes suggest that the emotional state of parents can subtly influence the early magical development of their offspring, a notion still debated but observed in carefully maintained familial environments, giving a surreal weight to their planning and daily interactions. Every gesture, smile, and shared decision becomes a foundation stone for a life that blends stability with possibility. Beyond family, they envision legacies in scholarship, advocacy, and magical innovation. Hermione dreams of enchanted libraries with interactive texts that respond to reader intention, while Harry envisions aura-led initiatives that safeguard both creatures and society. Canonically, both were poised to influence the reconstruction of magical society, yet their vision expands beyond administrative reform into cultural and educational enrichment. Fringe anecdotes tell of minor magical phenomena that appear when people act in alignment with purpose and emotional integrity, still debated by scholars but undeniably present in their careful, joyous experimentation with magic. These dreams anchor them, illustrating how shared vision, rooted in care and creativity, translates into a life of tangible impact and personal fulfillment. Adventures continue, though quieter now, punctuated by deliberate exploration rather than necessity. They revisit the Scottish ruins, the hidden locks and distant magical enclaves, tracing their discoveries with their imagined children in mind, thinking of lessons to impart, both practical and philosophical. Canonical texts describe a long tradition of magical mentorship, and here it becomes a personal ritual, knowledge shared not for recognition but for love, and the subtle shaping of the next generation's understanding of magic and morality. Fringe reports suggest that magical sites resonate differently depending on the intent and emotional clarity of visitors, a phenomenon still debated but evident in how certain ruins subtly shift in response to Harry and Hermione's purposeful presence. Each step in these adventures weaves a delicate network of learning, memory, and enchantment. Embedding their values into both landscape and legacy, they reflect often on their friends and extended families, imagining reunions and celebrations, integrating lessons learned from past trials. Canonically, post-war friendships held enduring importance, serving as anchors and advisors in navigating complex political and magical landscapes. Fringe magical curiosities, enchanted invitations that subtly arrange seating, based on interpersonal harmony. Self-writing notes reminding participants of shared histories add a playful dimension, reinforcing relationships and reminding all present of bonds forged through shared adversity. Harry and Hermione, aware of these subtleties, cultivate gatherings with thoughtfulness, laughter, and an appreciation for the unpredictable nuances of magical social life. In these interactions, trust, respect, and humor become central to both personal satisfaction and societal influence, blending the personal and professional seamlessly. Evenings in their home are often slow, reflective, and deliberately indulgent. Candles flicker with subtle enchantments to maintain warmth. Self-organizing shelves adjust with gentle, silent precision, and enchanted teapots whistle quietly, releasing perfectly steeped blends. Canonical studies confirm that domestic enchantments often serve both practical and emotional purposes, providing comfort and stability. Fringe reports note that objects in emotionally resonant environments can subtly amplify calm, joy, or attentiveness, still debated but demonstrably effective in domestic spaces. Harry and Hermione move through these spaces with ease, their rhythm unspoken, intuitive, and punctuated with quiet humor. The way hands brush, eyes meet, and laughter trickles softly through the rooms, creating a life of quiet enchantment, stability, and shared wonder. The couple also contemplates broader impact, mentoring young witches and wizards, preserving forgotten magical knowledge, and ensuring that the lessons of history, both light and dark, endure. Canonical records indicate that post-war magical society depended on such stewardship for continuity and moral guidance. Fringe magical practices hint that intentional guidance paired with affectionate attention can leave subtle, lasting imprints on apprentices' magical attunement, a mechanism still debated but visible in careful mentorship. Harry and Hermione approach this work not with obligation, but with joy, a deliberate integration of love, curiosity, and responsibility, extending the legacy of their partnership beyond themselves into the wider, magical world. In the final hours, as twilight deepens and the first stars shimmer like distant lanterns, they sit together in their garden, the wind soft, carrying whispers of leaves and enchanted blooms that respond to emotional resonance. Canonically, reflection and quiet observation have long been recognized as essential for magical growth, allowing practitioners to internalize lessons and attune to subtle forces. Fringe magical lore suggests that moments of calm, shared intention can harmonize ambient magic, a notion still debated but perceptible in the serene atmosphere surrounding them. Harry and Hermione share soft laughter, gentle touches, and whispered dreams, a quiet symphony of human and magical connection. Their partnership a testament to patience, growth, and enduring love. Finally, the narrative gently winds down, the enchanted windows dim, casting the room in soft silver shadows. Magical candles flicker lower, their glow warm and comforting. The house settles into quiet hums and soft murmurs, as if acknowledging the harmony of its inhabitants. Harry and Hermione share a last glance, a smile, and a silent promise that whatever challenges or wonders await, they will face them together. The wind carries a lullaby of distant enchanted forests, a gentle reminder of worlds yet to explore and life yet to live. Their journey, while extraordinary in magic, is profoundly ordinary in love, patient, playful, reflective, and enduring. As their home drifts into calm, the magical artifacts shimmer softly before fading, the echo of laughter lingering like a gentle sigh. Scholars still debate how alternate timelines might have influenced the wizarding world. Yet in this quiet space, the story concludes with a tender certainty that growth, love, and shared wonder are the most enduring magic of all. The night deepens, stars glittering faintly through enchanted windows, their light catching the edges of gently flickering candles. Outside, the wind rustles leaves, carrying distant scents of herbs and the quiet hum of the magical world breathing softly in the dark. Harry and Hermione sit side by side on the terrace, shoulders touching, letting the silence speak as their minds drift over the days. Weeks and months they have shared, every mishap, triumph, laugh, and quiet reflection. Even the enchanted objects around them seem to settle. Quills resting, teapots exhaling gentle whistles, and floating lanterns dimming to a calm glow, as if the house itself exhales a contented sigh. They speak little, words unnecessary. A glance or a soft squeeze of the hand conveys everything: trust, love, understanding, and hope. The magical wind carries the faintest echo of adventures past and possibilities yet to come, stirring the imagination gently while soothing the spirit. Time seems to stretch, elongated by contentment, as every sense, sight, sound, touch, absorbs the quiet enchantment of a world settled in balance. Their breathing synchronizes with the soft rhythm of the night, hearts attuned to each other, and the subtle pulse of life around them. Outside, trees sway lazily, shadows dancing like muted spectres, while the sky deepens to an indigo velvet, cradling the first hints of dawn. Here, in this fragile, fleeting moment, the extraordinary is ordinary, and ordinary is extraordinary, the true magic of shared life, patience, and quiet love. As eyelids grow heavy and the world softens into gentle slumber, the house, the wind, and the enchanted night hold their story with care, letting it rest until tomorrow's first light.